Joining me today to answer your questions are Julie Brettle, Chief Product Officer, and Toby Markets, Creative and Consulting Lead here at Squiz. Julie and her team are behind Squiz DXP, working tirelessly to build the right solutions for your customers. Toby and his team work with clients to understand problems and experiences that lead to the creation of awesome solutions. Today, we will be covering a run-through of the benefits and challenges we see in personalization projects, great personalization examples from our customers, and then we'll be covering how you can approach the 6 steps to getting personalization done in a very small and practical way. Now, to go through some housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive a copy via email within the next day. If you have any technical difficulties during our session, you can use the chat window on the right-hand side of your screen. Please submit any questions to Ask a Question bar located under the chat window. At any time during this session, Julie and Toby will be answering questions at the end. Let's dive into our topic. To kick us off, let's take a look at this comment strip. It's an example of extreme personalisation where Santa's predicted what this person wants for Christmas. I'm not sure how well it would go down with my kids if they couldn't request the present they wanted, but it would certainly make it easier for any of the parents out there. Why are we all here today? It's to talk about web personalisation. So, what is it? In a nutshell, it's a process of creating customised experiences for visitors to a website. Website personalisation allows organisations to build unique experiences tailored to customers' individual needs and preferences. Let's talk about something that not many people address. Digital is hard. It's never as easy as promised in advertising, is it? We've done research with our customers that confirms a big gap exists between our aspirations for what digital can deliver versus the reality on the ground. We don't operate in a perfect bubble. Fragmented systems, lean teams and resources, and competing priorities are all part of why this journey can be difficult. One of the reasons why there is an aspiration gap is because a lot of the tech out there is built for retail and e-commerce use cases that are not you. This audience has a much more complex organizational structure. It's service-driven and has lean teams and budgets. If we look at personalization, it's no different. Most of us have had experience at least one of these challenges when tackling personalization projects. Misconception of the ease of use of implementation, tackling too much at once, lack of commitment. It's a side project with no real ownership or not aligned across marketing aspirations for technical ability. Underestimating the content creation workload. We've all been there. Lack of a customer-orientated mindset, thinking too much about the organization's goal, separate to that of the user. And then, last but not least, absence of a long-term plan. But even though it's hard, you shouldn't need to give up and ignore personalization. The winners are the ones that are leveraging it, and we want a level playing field so that you can make it work for your organization. And the good news is that there are many ways that you can do this. I'm about to show you some examples of different levels of personalization. You don't have to do it to the nth degree. You don't have to look at your Amazons or your Netflix of the world. You have to look at what's relevant for you and your organization and start there. So, what do you do about it? We believe you don't have to trade off thinking big and getting it done. Tackle it by starting small, getting in market quickly and learning fast on the outcomes. And that is what we're going to dig into today. My first example is at Horsham Council. Something I'm sure we've all had experience with is needing to find out what day our waste collection is. When we miss it, it's annoying, right? This example from Horsham Council shows through an unauthenticated personalization action, the user is able to search for waste collection, select their location and get the answers that they need in a matter of seconds. So the citizen's happy and it's one less email or phone inquiry going through to the council service centre. When the user comes back to the site, as long as cookies are enabled, the council has the opportunity to promote events and surveys or any other services tailored to their postcode or zip code. Personalisation should reduce the inconvenience and allow us to get back to our day. An example of personalisation through language is this multilingual site from Sienna. Sienna is the world's biggest player in optical connectivity. Sienna used Squiz's DXP to govern and automate the process of translating and publishing content in different languages. Gonzaga University in the States utilizes authenticated personalization in search when their user is logged in to the intranet versus the public site. This then makes it the go-to platform to support retention at the university. CAI leverages their intranet to serve content and events based on their role and employment status of the user. London South Bank University leverages anonymous personalisation based on self-selection, self-identification of an interest to direct people quickly to their area of need. By placing course finders in front and centre, the London University recorded a 13% student enrolment increase in utilising Squiz DXP. So I've gone through some examples of different approaches to personalisation. What we'll be doing next is to help you figure out how you can approach 6 steps to getting personalisation done in a very small and practical way. Those 6 steps are: define user segments, define personalisation goals, map user journeys, set triggers, select content, and last but not least, measure results. There are 2 experiences I'll be referencing throughout today's webinar to help you string together the recommendations of each step. The first one is an undergraduate experience for a student looking to enrol in a university. The second is a citizen going to use a council's website to pay a parking fine and check on their waste collection. So let's go through step 1. When defining user segments, you want to understand your target audience needs with user data, utilise jobs to be done, on simple research interviews, and find common criteria to group users with similar jobs to be done. You may think you want to go for the persona approach. All of us have used or developed personas, right? But we know it can have its flaws. Let me just give you an example of how using personas can present its own challenges. Let's have a look at user 1. He's male, he's born in 1948, he's married twice, lives in a castle, and is wealthy and famous. He is none other than King Charles III. Now let me show you another member of royalty that meets this criteria. It's the Prince of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne. Although both personas share the same demographic traits, you simply would not market to them in the same way. One reason why a lot of personalisation projects can fail can be down to the wrong use of personas. Because unless you actually knew Ozzy and King Charles, then you would not be able to tell the difference between them. So let's just take a step back. We've mentioned jobs to be done 2 slides back. Some of you will have experience with them, and for those of you that haven't, here's a very simple explanation. Jobs to be done are the single most important criteria to start your segmentation exercise with, and it's based on the concept that every user has a job to be done on your site. Most companies split their target audience into segments on the basis of user and product characteristics. However, users have a different view of the market. They just have a task or a job to be done, and they're looking for the most appropriate product to help them solve it. As you can see from this example, you wouldn't walk into a store looking to buy wheel bearings and a carbon skateboard. You're looking to get a gift for your son who enjoys skateboarding. So, what job is your product or service hired to do? Common jobs to be done categories include finding out more about the organisation to see if it's a credible or right fit for that particular user. Finding out more about a product or service they're interested in hiring to achieve a personal or professional objective. Executing on a task, a form fill, application submission, making a payment or a claim. Contacting support or a specific person to solve a problem they're facing as soon and as quick as possible. Jobs to be done aims at grouping users by focusing on shared user needs and intent. A simple way to find this out is just ask your users or customers. Start with 10. You might find some quick trends and insights that help you segment customers by their job to be done. Our personalisation guide, which will be sent following this webinar, has a list of questions you can start with, but here are just a few you might consider. Tell me the main task or job that you're looking to achieve on the site. Why is that important to you? How would you normally find information or service that you need on the site? Are there specific information gaps on the site that would improve your ability to get your main task or job done? And if so, why is that important to you? Did you find the overall experience you had hard or easy? And how can it be improved? Those questions should offer you greater clarity about why your users visit your site and what content helps them to get their jobs done. This is an example of how you may bring your segments together with the jobs to be done. Don't worry, I won't expect you to read this in 1 minute, as it can seem quite overwhelming. We have laid it all out in our Getting Started with Personalization guide that will be sent to you following the webinar. It includes access to usable templates, and I'll take you through just one example now. Say you're a university and you're looking to create an optimal experience for your prospective students. You would start with the job to be done on the right of your table. In this example, the job to be done is enroll in an undergraduate course. From here, you can match the different jobs to be done with different types of content or actions your user segments need and detailing how this can be achieved. In this example, the difference in demographics of a high school leaver or an equivalent qualification could affect how you may deliver the message around enrolment. So what we've just covered is that jobs to be done are your users' personalization goals. So now let's focus on your organizational goals and how we can map the two together. Here are a few common ones that you can take some inspiration from: increase engagement, increase conversion, increase upsell value, and increase retention rate. As an example, if you're in higher education, increasing engagement might be linked to student happiness or success. If you're in government, you may be able to increase engagement by disseminating relevant information to your citizens. This could include council meetings, events, services that you can see value, so that you can see the value of the services being offered in your local area. Now that you've defined what each user segment wants to achieve on your website, you can start mapping these to organizational outcomes linked to your users' jobs. You want to do this to ensure your organizational goals are aligned with your users and to make it easy to define the kind of metrics that will help you understand if these goals are being achieved. Let's continue with the earlier example of a student's job to be done to enroll in an undergraduate course. The student goal is to enroll in the course. Your personalization goal is to increase enrollment conversions from the site's content. You may measure results of personalization efforts by tracking the number of form completions on the site or specific course page. When you map and then track in this way, it allows you to check what's working and what's not. It allows you to make further improvements, expand and optimize, whilst ensuring you are capturing the metrics that can both demonstrate the needs of the user and your organization are being met. In our detailed personalization guide, we show you how to set up, track and measure some of these metrics in Google Analytics. This template available in the guide you will get is an example of how you can begin to build your story on one sheet. As you can see, we've covered user segments and goals. Now we're going to cover journeys and triggers. So let me talk about steps 3 and 4 together, and that's mapping user journeys and setting triggers. When defining segments and goals, we tend to use journey mapping to work backwards from the user's job to be done. This allows you to systematically work out how they currently or ideally should achieve that action on your site. Once you complete this, it helps you to define the point at which makes sense for you to set a personalization trigger. At what point is meaningful for them to get a more personalized experience, and at what point is just noise or needless? I want to spend some time on step 3 because this is where a lot of personalization projects fail. We attempt to create these extensive maps of every touch point, and it can quickly spiral out of control and become far too complicated. What then happens is that your teams can't translate it into practical actions. It becomes too technical and overwhelming to implement, and the maps created become an artifact that gathers dust once produced. It doesn't need to be complicated, and I know I have been there in the past. A simple exercise to map the journey on whiteboard or worksheet or even a sketch on paper. Do this before trying to complete complicated journey maps or templates that just won't make sense to your organization. By starting simple, it will allow you to test and get 1 or 2 approaches out to market. As an example of how simple this can be, This is a student journey on a university site that I did up in just a few minutes. A prospective student arrives on a university website looking to register for an open day. The student uses a search bar to find the open day. A range of courses are displayed and the user clicks history as an interested subject. The student is taken to a form to submit their interest. When the user returns to the site and they're served course information on history in the course budget and relevant upcoming events. Now you can apply this method to any industry or sector. A government example is someone submitting a payment for a parking fine on a government website, and when they return to their waste collection day, according to their postcode or zip code is displayed. Now, this is a very simple way to get started. If you wanted a more detailed analytical-based journey mapping, you can use Google Analytics or a range of other tools. We'll take you through how to approach this in our guide, but we don't want to diverge too far away from the main point of this step. Why journey mapping is so important? It's so you can figure out what the user does to get their job done, and at what point in the journey is it meaningful for us to start personalizing that experience, whether it's anonymous personalization or authenticated personalization. To recap, in step 3, we mapped our user journeys. In step 4, we need to set a trigger to activate personalization where it makes sense. So, what's a trigger? It's a point or action taken in the user's journey where you can start to control what content should be seen. When the conditions of the trigger are met, an action occurs that personalizes the site's content for that user at that point. There are 2 types of personalization, anonymous and authenticated. The distinction between anonymous and authenticated hangs on the personal identifiable information. This is information that can be used alone, in combination, or in context to contact a local or an individual. This information includes unique and partial identifiers such as name, address, phone number, and email address. Therefore, there are 2 types of personalization triggers that you can use to personalize your web experience. First one is anonymous personalization triggers. This type of trigger allows you to personalize by user interest or interest inferred by behavior. It will trigger a personalized experience that tends to be channel specific, website for example, and will remain until the users have cleared their cookies. Examples of anonymous triggers are first-party cookie. Your website can store information about the user with their consent and remembers their preferences for each visit until they clear the cookies. Self-identification gives the user the option to select a profile type at the top of the website to automatically display relevant information to that user type and a tailored website navigation. For example, I'm a university student, staff alumni, or I'm looking to pay a parking fine or find out my waste day or register for a permit. User location, where a user is located based on their IP address. Segmenting your user in this way makes sense if their location is a key factor influencing their expectations or behaviours. For example, a council site will display content recommendations to residents based on their postcode, or a university shows content relevant to foreign students such as accommodation options near campus. Web event, specific actions taken on your website, including page views or clicks, can trigger personalization. Device type, the device, for example, a mobile phone or a desktop, that your users browse on helps you to prioritize your website development efforts. For example, a university student using a mobile device is more likely to look for on-the-go information. For example, campus map or library hours, rather than browse the library website to read a specific paper. Traffic source. The referring channel of a visit can help you determine the type of content you should serve a user. For example, paid traffic is typically geared towards the content that drives conversion. For example, a purchase of product or service. Search. Keywords are used on your site search bar to indicate your areas of interest. The second type of personalization triggers are authenticated personalization. Authenticated triggers normally use user-specific data to personalize content. The benefit of this type of personalization can work across channels, are persistent versus cookie-based. They tend to combine data sources, for example, CRM information, and can control access to restricted content. You can exactly identify your users with this following method. Login authentication, whether you're need to integrate with an account via single sign-on or a similar login feature. This is the most secure way to personalize content. Let me walk you through an example using anonymous personalization triggers. I mapped out an unknown student user's enrollment journey in the previous step. This example from Griffith University of a self-identification widget is a prime example of how to apply personalization in this instance. The widget is used to help prospective applicants to the location that suits them best. And you'll see on the right of that they've also selected domestic, high school student and undergraduate using a filter. In this instance, the user would be able to see the undergraduate course and related fees based on their location and other filters. Continuing on that same user's journey, if their job to be done is to find out if they should enroll in an undergraduate course at the university, one of the things they'd want to do is attend an open day to get a feel of the campus and the staff in person. We should be able to promote open day event details and times to them using the banner or an event component that automatically lists the next available days in their location. So we now have covered user segments, goals, mapping user journeys, triggers, and now we're looking at content. This visual shows some possible examples of content that can be personalized on a website, from notification banners, menu items, images and titles, dynamic data, copy, product recommendations, call to action, search results, portals, and much more. In the guide, we'll share with you their explanations for each of these content areas and what you should consider when personalizing each type. Now, I guess that you're looking at this and thinking, wow, there's a lot of things I need to personalization, but you don't have to do them all at the same time. That's the real key that we're trying to get to across today. Start small, test and scale. Think about one job to be done and your users really care about time and time again. I have given examples such as waste collection for councils and course selection for universities. Focus on that. Do it well and progress to other areas. It's better to have one successful component in market than lots of initiatives that take too long to launch simultaneously. So we've covered steps 1 to 5 and I'll wrap up step 6 very quickly. Now that your personalization is in place, it's time to measure its effectiveness against the goals you set for each user segment. A common tool to measure personalization efforts across your website is Google Analytics 4, or GA4 for short. In this example, first, define each of your user segments under audiences with the admin panels. You can use pre-made GA4 audiences or select create a custom audience. For each segment, you'll need to carefully select what criteria GA4 should use to identify its users, including source, page visited, event, etc. Back in GA4 main panel, go to reports and then select engagement. And you can then measure each user segment against a set of selected metrics, such as conversions, engagement, or whatever you decided is to measure your personalization success against. There is also a myriad of engagement and tracking tools that could be used. Or you can simply bring all that we have covered today in this template, which is accessible from the personalization guide, which will be sent to you following this webinar. Do and measure what is right for your business. And remember, not to be creepy. So to recap, focus on 1 to 2 group segments to map user journeys for. 1 to 2 personalization triggers relevant to the most important jobs to be done for those segments. 2 to 3 content items to personalize per segment, and then 2 to 3 measures of success. Start with something small, do it quickly to learn, iterate and show results to earn the right to expand your scope. I hope you got a good overview of the 6 steps that you can take to get ready for personalization projects and how you can approach it in bite-sized chunks. I'm sure you have some questions. My colleagues Julie and Toby have been waiting in the wings to join me for the Q&A. So to ask a question, just drop them into the right-hand side of your screen. Welcome, Julie and
Hi, welcome Julie and Toby. Thank you to everyone out there that's been listening and watching. So we've got a couple of questions that I'd love to run through with you, Julie and Toby. Toby, I think this first one might be for you. What metrics or key performance indicators should be monitored to measure the success of website personalization?
Yeah, great question. And it's really nice to hear that question being asked, actually, because ultimately you need an end goal, right? We don't want to just be doing personalization for the sake of doing personalization. It's a very in vogue thing at the moment. But yeah, we want to be able to see some kind of tangible and measurable things attached to it. So yeah, to answer the question, it kind of depends, is the obvious answer. It depends on the organization. For example, if you are in higher education, you might look at things like conversion rates, for example, of students. You might want to focus in on engagement rates, perhaps. So at the moment, GA4 has got some really nice new kind of engagement metrics we can look at, like engagement rate, engagement time on pages. If we can kind of tailor those to specific content that we've set up to reach certain segments and see that those are performing better, that's a really good one to look at. Perhaps if we're talking local government, we might look at resident satisfaction scores, maybe number of form submissions for certain things. It really does kind of depend, as I say, but it's really fantastic that is being asked as a question, because ultimately, yeah, we don't want to just do personalization for the sake of it. We want to be able to see a tangible difference. And the kind of last point on that would be actually a super important thing is benchmarking. So obviously, if we're looking at metrics and KPIs after having implemented personalization, we're not going to kind of know where we came from. It's really important that we have a sort of a benchmark. We look at certain metrics and certain KPIs, set a benchmark for where we're at, do personalization, and then see where we get to. And obviously, what we want to do is see a key improvement in those areas. And if we do, we can report that to our bosses, and everybody's happy.
Yeah. I can see, moving on to the next question, someone in the audience, Sabrina, has submitted, what are the future trends and advancements expected in the field of web personalization? So Julie, I think I'm going to hand that one over to you.
Cool. I get all the fun tech ones. I'm so pleased. Yeah, there's a lot going on at the moment. I think one key thing that's going to get a lot bigger soon is something called omnichannel personalization. So this is when you're bringing together in-person interactions and online interactions and consolidating that into that single profile. And then you can personalize and curate that experience based off all of the information. A couple of other things is personalization at scale. So, as if we're bringing together in-person and online interactions, you're going to have an enormous amount of volume of data. And as the numbers of users and the amount of data you have for each of those users increases, you're going to really need to do a lot of robust infrastructure and more advanced AI algorithms to help you process and analyze that data. It's not going to be able to be something that people are going to be able to do without help. So lots of ways that improvements around automation, automated and intelligent segmentation, and more scalable personalization will be sort of coming. There's some of them are here, and some of them are coming really soon to really help guide that. And I think the last sort of big thing that might be coming up in this space is around that augmented reality or virtual reality, so that AR, VR. So AR and VR technologies, think maybe not quite metaverse yet, but think around that space. It can really transform web personalization. So you can have these immersive technologies that can provide those personalized product visualization or interactive simulations that are really tailored to that individual preference. I do think that education is a space that is really going to be looking at AR and VR going forward around student engagement and student learning and being able to personalize learning for the students as well and building out those really engaging experiences. So there's lots of other things, but I think those are the three things that are coming in the near future around personalization.
That's great, Julie. Thank you. And we know that experience is really in high priority now for students that are looking to enroll at universities, as much as the academic piece within it. So we have another question down here. So do you have any insight around segmenting prospective students in general in the higher education space? So I think that one I'll be sending over to Toby.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. We actually were in attendance at an HE conference recently where a really key insight that came out of a panel discussion was around international recruitment. A lot of universities at the moment are telling us that even internally, there is a bit of a habit of kind of segmenting or grouping international students as this kind of one cohort that is treated in a certain way. And what we're hearing is that that's really, really absolutely not the way to be going about it, given that there is a huge amount of diversity in how international students from different countries, how they want to be marketed to, and what they want and what they expect from higher education. So we know, I think, three kind of big booming markets at the moment for the UK are China, India, and Nigeria. Those three nationalities, prospective students coming from those three different countries, they really typically want different things. And I think there's a real opportunity here in HE for HE to get a little bit more granular with that, and to split up or to segment international students in a way that is, a little bit more granular. Obviously, there is a kind of an overhead to that, which is you really need to understand your audiences. You can't just kind of go ahead and do this and set up segments based on kind of what you think. You do need to do the groundwork. You need to sit down with your prospective international students. You need to speak with your agents that are set up in those countries. And you need that intelligence to understand what it is that they really seek. Once you have that, that's when you can start doing some really kind of fun stuff with the segmentation that MC you went through very, very well earlier on. If you've got, as I say, if you've got that really great intelligence about them, you can set up really kind of granular segments, and you can then provide content to them that absolutely meets what it is that they want and what they need. So, to kind of summarize, I would say there's a big opportunity in international recruitment. All of the studies at the moment point towards, particularly in the UK, Julie could perhaps speak more to the ANZ market, but there is reckoned to be a huge kind of surge in the number of international students coming to the UK. I'm sure that kind of rings true across in ANZ as well. There's a massive opportunity here. We know that international students pay more in fees as well. They're often the lifeblood of universities. Universities want to get more kind of diverse campuses. They want to have this kind of enrichment from all around the world. So I think a massive opportunity with personalization is around international recruitment.
Just leading on from that, our next question is around, are there any privacy concerns associated then with web personalization that we should be thinking about? And sorry, Toby, I'm going to bat another one back to you then, but I think you're on a roll talking about the segmentation piece, and obviously the next thing on is how do we, protect privacy?
Yeah, no worries. Yes is the short answer to that question. There are, of course, privacy concerns with when it comes to personalization. But actually, I think we're in a kind of a better state than we were maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, largely because we've got this kind of thing that I'm sure a lot of people have heard of called the kind of the cookie apocalypse. And that's essentially where many browsers who've already done it are either blocking or heavily restricting the use of third-party cookies. And we all know that we get cookies dropped in our browser, and we get some sort of creepy levels of personalization given to us, where we think we're sort of talking about something on the train, and suddenly it appears in one of our feeds somewhere. One of the beauties, though, of the CDP is that it relies on first-party cookies. So we haven't got this kind of creepy or intrusive element to it. Yet it only kind of analyzes first-party data, which actually means that we can do kind of more accurate and more relevant personalization as well. So really everybody wins. That the end user gets actually a better experience. They're getting a less intrusive experience as well. It's less creepy. So all things considered, moving to a kind of first-party cookie system is a much better thing all round, and is absolutely the way forward.
You touched on cookies quite a bit there. One of the questions that have come through is around what are the data collection best practices that we should consider when looking at personalization in a cookieless world. Julie, do you want to add to that? And Toby, if there's anything that you want to come back with after Julie's answered it.
Sure. So I think Toby was just talking about, collecting and leveraging that first party data, and that's really key. So that's the data that you obtain directly from the user and with user consent, and that's the important bit. One key thing that you need to make sure you're doing with best practices is around getting that explicit user consent for data collection, and then really clearly communicating in your privacy guidelines or another way how that collected data is going to be used. You need to make sure that you've got transparent privacy policies and cookie notices, and building up that trust with your users. It's also really, really important to make sure that you have really excellent security measures to protect that user data from unauthorized access or breaches. So we need to make sure that we're complying with all the applicable data protection regulations like GDPR or any other regional privacy, especially if you're a global company. So you need to make sure you are complying globally. So if you are collecting data from someone in California, even if you're located in London, you still need to comply with the Californian Data Privacy Collection Act. So really about making sure that you have, you're getting that explicit consent so that people understand what they are signing up for, and making sure that you've got the excellent security to protect that data and following all the data governance rules. And if you follow all of that, they're all the really great best practices.
So I've got another one for you, Julie. Toby mentioned it briefly about a customer data platform. So one of the questions is, what if I have my own customer data platform, or CDP for short, or CRM, so customer relationship management system, that has some segmentation capability already. So do I then need to use Squiz's CDP if I forgot that?
Yeah, no, not at all. So Squiz is what we call a fully composable DXP. That means that you can take the bits of it that you want. We have a large number of different capabilities, but it will also work really well with any third-party system. And that's something we're really committed to in the product team. So it means that if you've already got a CDP, there's 50 out there in market at least, I think, at the moment, or a CRM that can segment your user data. It will talk really, really easily through all of our APIs to our content management to enable you to do that web personalization and to the rest of the system. We do have a number of customers who are already using third-party CDPs, or a couple that are also using CRMs, and it works very, very well. So that's something that we really take seriously, is we want to make sure that you can bring the technology that you need.
Okay. So, and another question here, I'm going to put this back to you, Julie. How can machine learning and artificial intelligence be used in website personalization?
Yeah. So I covered a little bit of that with my very first answer. And then, of course, there's the standard recommendations related to content that can be generated in real time. So you're looking at something, it can look at your history and generate you some real-time recommended related content. But some cooler, because I think they're cooler, ways that you can use web personalization is around content customization. So that's when you can use AI techniques like that natural language processing, or NLP, which is all that chat GPT I'm sure you've all played with. And what that lets you do is analyze and understand user preferences for how they want to consume content. So one really great example is looking at maybe you're a council that has a 15-step thing that you need to do to register a boat, for example. What is the best way that your users want to consume that content? Are they, younger, trend younger, and want to be able to consume it as a video? Serve the content as a short, automatically generated video with the voiceover in the language of their choice. Does another type of user tend to like reading information? They learn better by reading, but they tend to only want to read the first 150 words. They get bored easily. So serve up a really short, punchy summary of the content. Being able to, on the fly, generate the content in the way that your user wants to consume it is really all around personalizing and tailoring that content for that user's needs and preferences. And that's a really interesting way you can use AI. And then another big one is obviously that predictive analytics, about how you can use historical data to make predictions about user behavior. So maybe it's likelihood to make a complaint to a council, or likelihood of a student maybe about to leave university. So looking at all the different trends and consolidating all the information you have, so you can personalize their digital experiences and adjust the content to maybe offer them some personalized help before they make that complaint, or offer them, hey, here are some appointments you could make with a financial counselor or a student advisor to try and get them back on track. So being able to predict that well in advance, so you can make steps to stop them getting to that kind of critical point.
So we've talked a lot, obviously, about website personalization, and a lot of the information that you're talking about there, Julie, in terms of the content that needs to be served. Web is not agnostic to other platforms, and so how do we enable personalized experience across multiple digital channels, different websites, apps, emails? We're living in a world where we're connected to everything. How do we ensure that we enable that personalized and consistent experience?
Yeah, and that can actually be quite challenging, but there's lots of different methods you can use to establish a connection. But I think one of the underlying strategies we've all said a few times is don't be creepy about it, though. So there's, the best approach that we've really found in our experience is having an authenticated or logged in experience. That means you log in, you might log in on your phone, you might even have an app on your phone for it, you could log in on web. It can even do verging on creepy, but Internet of Things sensors, so it knows when you're walking past a shop and it can send you an alert about there's a 10% off code, those kinds of things. That's where you can really get that omnichannel personalization. So being able to be logged in and then you're consenting to everything that you're giving them, that's the best way we've found to do it. Other ways you can do it if you don't have that logged in experience available, there's lots of different persistent identifiers around cookies, mobile device IDs that can be used to recognize users across different devices, as well as if you have forms are a really great opportunity for maybe, say, getting people to submit information and volunteer information. So then you can understand anonymous user 157 over on this mobile site is the same as anonymous user 634 over here, and then you can link those two profiles together and do that personalization. However, of course, as been a theme with some of my answers, that privacy and consent is really essential when considering implementing those different methodologies. There's lots of different ways you can sort of match, and it's really what you're comfortable with. So that's it.
Okay, so thanks so much for that, Julie. This is probably going to be our last question. What are the implications of a user choosing not to accept cookies? For example, can the CDP segment by location if a user hasn't actually accepted cookies?
No. Sorry, Toby, was you meant to answer that one?
No, well, I probably in a more a poorly worded version of what you're going to say. So I'll let you go, Julie.
Yeah. So if a user does not accept the tracking of cookies, you cannot use any information that the user about that user for web personalization, including location data. If you do have a method where a user is volunteering other information, like for example, one of the examples you had, MC, was they could self-select, their location, or perhaps if it's a university, the type of student they want. As long as your privacy policy is clear that if they volunteer that information, it will be saved. You can personalize on that self-selected and volunteered information, even if they've said no to cookies. So essentially, it's around what you think your users will be finding acceptable. In the Squiz CDP, we do have a way of tracking how many people are sort of accepting or turning down cookies, so you can see if there are any trends. Obviously, the only thing we track is that they've said no, but you can see the trends, and if you are seeing a trend where people aren't accepting the cookies and therefore allowing you to personalize, is it something in your privacy policy that's making people uncomfortable, or did you want to move more to that self-selecting thing so that you can at least personalize that user experience a little bit?
Okay, thank you. Well, we've got 1 minute before the end, so I just want to thank absolutely everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Toby. Thank you for everyone out there who listened to the presentation and for the questions and answers. So I'll just maybe give you a bit of information about what's to come next. Thank you. So coming up, we actually have our Getting Started with Personalization guide that will be sent to you following this presentation. You can register your interest in our customer data platform webinar. We talked a lot about it in the questions and answers, and we've got a really interesting webinar coming up in August and September and you can be the first to receive our invite with the date and the time. You want to hear some more of these great insights from the likes of Toby and Julie, and sign up to our newsletter. You can get your latest updates. We send it out a couple of articles every 2 weeks. It's not very spammy, and you can get some really great insights around what people like you are doing in the personalization space and other things within the Squiz DXP realm. And if you're a customer of ours, if you want to know more, please reach out to your account manager. Otherwise, you can alternatively send an email to ask@squiz.net and one of our team will get back to you shortly. I want to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you to Julie and Toby, and I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your morning. Take care.